Hi guys, and welcome to our discussion about how well-designed co-living spaces and communities provide positive experiences for the over 50s market. My name is Lucy McInally. I'm a digital marketer working at Co-Liv. I also have a background in interior design, having studied a master's focusing on intergenerational living at the Glasgow School of Art. And today, for my discussion, I have the lovely Neha and Cate, who are joining me today. So I'd love you guys to introduce yourselves really briefly. Neha, please, you can go first.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, everyone. I'm Neha Arora N, and I'm India's leading hospitality designer. I specialize in co-living spaces, student housing, senior living, and yes, that's truly my passion. I'm super excited to be here and look forward to having a great discussion.
I'm actually, I have to say, I'm so happy that you said yes to to join Lucy and myself as well. I crushed Lucy's session, so thank you, Lucy, for letting me do that. I've been a fan of your work, and last time when I saw your presentation at the coliving hub event, I was just so in awe. I remember I was like, wow, really? This is the power of design. So if you're listening to it now, stay in and like literally listen, and it's going to be amazing. But quick intro about me. I'm Cate. I am the head of ambassador for coliv, the global no-profit association, and I'm also the community and partnership manager at SALTO Systems. SALTO Systems is a solution provider for access control and management solutions. Thank you, Lucy, as well for having us today. And I was wondering, ladies, if we could start perhaps by just having a chat on whatever we do think that there is a need for a different approach in community and design, actually, in co-living spaces for the over 50s market. So I don't know if you wanted to start, maybe, Neha.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, I definitely think, that there is a different need for the above 50s market. I mean, there are different stages in life, and each stage brings with it various changes, whether it's physiological changes or emotional or cognitive, even lifestyle changes happen. And as these changes happen, our needs as well change depending on the life stage that we are in. And I guess, when needs change, the space in which you're living also needs to accommodate for that change, right? I mean, when we are talking about, the millennials, we speak about bean bags, right? Low chairs. But for the seniors and people above 50, I mean, however young they think they are, I mean, it is going to be difficult for them to, plonk themselves on a bean bag. So we need to have things like, chairs with lumbar support, high back, etc. It could also be, the mattress that you use in the co-living space. You can use the soft plush mattresses for your, millennials, but for the older generation, you definitely need something that works for their, orthopedic requirements. So, I mean, the list can, go on. I mean, you need 24/7 medical support for the people above, 50. You need possibly larger rooms. I mean, they're so used to living in luxury, that you can't give them a twin sharing room. You want to give them a larger suite or a villament, for instance. So things like that. I mean, there's definitely a need for a different design aesthetics, design sensibilities in designing for the above 50 age group.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Neha. Because I'm based in the UK, I'm sort of more aware of what the UK market need and want. And I've noticed for like many spaces, both residential and like public spaces, there are many aspects of that space that are not necessarily designed for the older market. So here, like fixtures and fittings might be too high up for somebody who's in a wheelchair, for example. And things have changed recently because there's a lot of policy around that now. But I think there's still potentially like a lack of awareness when designing a space, that it doesn't accommodate for certain age groups, particularly, the over 50s market, or more kind of the senior market as well. So I really think there is a need to focus on this market. And one of the things that sort of is highlighted in the UK, for example, is the loneliness epidemic, and how a lot of people aged over 50, not necessarily have had families, or perhaps they've had a divorce, or they might have children who have like flown the nest, and they are very much living, you know, by themselves. And, you know, if they potentially kind of were able to live with other people and like co-live with amongst other people and amongst a community of like-minded people, then that would definitely improve happiness and quality of life. So yeah, 100%. You know, I really feel like there is a need for designing spaces for this older market. And I'd really like to know, Neha, what is your process when you're designing co-living spaces for an adult demographic?
Right. I think the first step that I generally follow is to do my entire bit of research. It begins with identifying what is the demographic that we are looking at, what is the age group, because there's a huge difference between, people who are above 50, say till 65, and people who are above 65, say to a 75 or an 80. I mean, the first group, they don't really consider themselves old. I mean, they're just entering into the process of aging, and to the point that they aren't even wanting to accept that they are getting into that age bracket. So there is a big difference between that, along with above 65. So I think the first thing that I do in my process is to do a lot of research in terms of demographic as well as the ethnographic. How is it that they live, and what is it that their cultural needs are.
Mhm.
Post that, I have, of course, Cate has attended the 4 I's of co-living, and I generally follow that as my next step, where I come up with the first I, which is, of course, immersive. I identify, I come up with a storyline, and then I create the entire design to bring that to life and create an immersive space for the people who are staying there. Secondly, I create spaces that are inclusive. Whatever age group you are, you'll always find people who want to mingle. There are people who want to be in isolation. There are people who want to party and have fun, and there are people who are more interested in reading. So everyone has different needs and requirements, and my objective is to identify, design, and create spaces that are inclusive for the residents who are staying there. Thirdly, of course, any space, whether it's for the youngsters or for the above 50 age group, it has to be very warm and inviting. And like I love the European concept of hygge. And I mean, it's something that it's so cozy, and it warms your heart. You want to invite people. So that kind of an inviting space is what I do, which is, of course, the third I. And the fourth I is to create a space that is Instagrammable, because even the people above 50 are interested. They're all on social media. And
Exactly.
so I obviously follow the 4 I's, which is again generic to all kinds of co-living spaces, whether it's for student housing or for working people or for the old age group. But the third step, which I generally do, especially for the senior housing, is to identify 4 other elements. One is ergonomics, and that I think is very, very critical. Like I mentioned before, whether it is having a softer flooring or whether it is having anti-skid floors, like you said, your lighting and fixtures, at what height they are. All these elements are part of the ergonomics that one keeps in mind. The second thing that I have to keep in mind is health and care, the well-being of the people living there. That's very, very essential for people above that age group. And therefore, to have spaces where they can have nature walks, or spaces for yoga, tai chi, even medical spas that can be incorporated in the space. So to make sure that you are able to create spaces for that particular purpose. The third thing which I believe in is luxury. I mean, these people have all lived their lives, they've earned their money, they've sent their children for to great educational institutes, and they're alone today, but they've lived their life in luxury. So the idea is to add in elements of luxury, whether it's a lifestyle sports like tennis and golf, or it is just creating an entire luxurious environment in the space.
Yeah.
And so that's, of course, the third. And the fourth element, which I feel is very, very, very critical, sorry, is actually companionship more than just community. You know, we all speak of community on a large scale, but what these people above the age of 50 need is true companionship, you know. So to create experiences wherein, you know, you have clubs, whether it's a reading club or a cultural club, and, you know, allowing pets to be brought in, you know, things like that. So to create an atmosphere and an experience for them to indulge and have real companionship is what I focus in terms of designing the space. So yeah, I think these are the typically 3 steps that I follow in creating and designing a space for them.
Is it okay if I say something, Lucy, as well?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, every time you speak, I'm just always so in awe on everything that you say, and I just stay here smiling and nodding. It's just, I really love how you bring out some elements that once you say, it's like, obviously, like, you know, yeah, of course. But then before you say, we don't even think about it. Like I remember one of your presentation when you were talking about the importance, for example, of communal areas, but with some breakout areas, which actually I repeated that in another event that I was on this morning. And I was just saying, absolutely, you know, the necessity, exactly as you were saying, even if it's a communal area, to really incentivize community, which I think it goes back a little bit to, you know, what we were discussing before, a slightly different approach in community or companionship, exactly as you were saying. It's what is very important is a different target, right? So, you know, some people want to have a chat and some people want to read and some people want to do something else, which is exactly the same for every market. For the students, for the millennial, for the Gen Z, for the in-betweeners, let's say. But even more thought, I think it has to be for this type of target markets. And I'm thinking that because in 5 years, I'm going to be 50. So I am also thinking, and that's what I was telling Lucy the other day. And I was saying, well, I am starting to think, you know, what kind of places would I like to live in? Like I really do not imagine myself living on my own, by myself. Maybe in a co-living space, which is a bit more clusters than communal, if that makes sense, you know, where maybe I would have a bit more of my private space, maybe, not necessarily just a room, maybe something a little bit bigger, but, you know, the whole elements that you were saying, you know, the posh tennis courts and maybe golf club, no, I'm not there yet, but all of these sorts of elements, you're absolutely right, you know, when you reach a certain age, especially for certain target market, that's exactly what you will want. You will want to say, yes, I want companionship, but also, you know, I really enjoyed this and I really enjoyed all of that. And taking all of that in consideration, I think it's a very particular job and it has to be really thought through. And yeah, it's again, you know, for me, it's very exciting because I feel like right now I have a few years to prepare the industry and you know, to not I'm the only one preparing the industry. I don't want to sound so arrogant, but what I'm saying is that to be someone who is part of this preparation of the industry to really change the way 50 plus are going to live, you know, in the future. And as I was saying before, actually, when I was showing you ladies, you can't really see because of my thing, but maybe like this, yes. Yeah. So Forbes has just done this cover about 50 over 50 ladies, and they called it a movement of women defining the idea what the first half of life is the most dynamic, and they are going to be the game changer leading the way in the second half of their lives. And I think it's so beautiful because it's like, you know, what we used to see 50 years old back in the days, at least when I was young, so when I was 40 years ago nearly, you know, my parents were 50, they were already very old, but not just because I looked at them and I thought they were old, just the way they lived. And I think now we live in a very different way, right? Like I feel very comfortable to, you know, hang around with people which are much, much younger than my age. And I still feel very comfortable with having me around. And I think the design and also, you know, the community that we are creating or companionship, like you were saying, surrounding this element has to really take in consideration how much this segment of the market has changed during the years. I don't know, does that make sense, Lucy? Like yesterday, Yesterday,
Oh,
when we met each
yeah.
other, we were also chatting about your mom, you know. It's like how, you know, how still very young she is. She's running a business. She's doing a lot of things, you know, she's very creative. And if you put her in a place which is targeted for, you know, a certain age,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really have that, you know, more modern touch and feeling and design and thought process and all of that, and like she's not going to pick the place, she's not going to stay.
I love how we're kind of talking about this from a like holistic point of view, where it's everything is carefully considered. Like you were saying, Neha, like interior design doesn't just relate to spatial design or sort of the configuration of furniture within a space. It actually involves so much more than that. It's designing like a lifestyle, almost like a suitable environment for, like we're talking about this market, the over 50s, to thrive in. And I just picked up on some of the words, like the keywords that you were kind of talking about, like immersive, inclusive, love that. You know, I think if a place is inclusive and everyone feels valued and they feel sort of a sense of belonging, then they thrive and they have positive experiences, and then they sort of put those positive experiences on to other people. I feel like when you're around positive people, you feel positive, and that's something that can be kind of like put together through design. Also, Instagrammable, love that. You know, I do think Instagram is somewhere where we can go for inspiration, and everyone can use a platform like Instagram to sort of be inspired. I certainly use it for inspiration, particularly interior design inspiration. Health as well, kind of what you were saying, Cate. I feel that how we look at people who are aged 50 now is very different from how we viewed the over 50s, you know, in the last 50 years, let's say, like in the end portion of the 20th century, we viewed 50-year-old people as sort of at the end of their life, whereas now that's not the case, and it shouldn't be the case. And if we actually design environments for that segment to thrive in, then they, you know, will live longer and they will live a happy, fulfilling life. And companionship as well. When you said it's not just about community, it's about companionship, I really, that was a really amazing kind of, it just sort of resonated with me, companionship. So I think that's lovely. Yeah.
I also think that, you know, we're not going to tap too much into this right now. I know we will be discussing more maybe in other occasions as well. But I also think that, you know, you tapped into Instagram and social media, etc. And sometimes younger people tend to think that they are the only one who use social media and use that sort of thing. It's actually not true. It's actually not true. You know, there are so many, you know, especially women, but also men, you know, general, you know, men and women of a certain age, so, you know, over 50, as we said, you know, later life or second half of life, like Forbes just said, that actually use a lot of technology, which could be social media or anything else, etc. And designing a place or setting up a place that doesn't really have this in mind, it's, I think, a huge mistake from any operator. And I think the reason why we haven't really seen, I think, huge you know, brands and operators coming out with these sorts of, you know, co-living, let's say, really targeted on this, is because exactly as you know, as Neha was saying before, it's the amount of research that you have to do, you know, before to really set up a place. We also must remember that, at least for now, this segment of the market is a segment that is not going to move as fast as the younger segment does. So the millennial and the Gen Z especially will move very fast. You know, they will stay maybe 12, 18 months, 6 months, something like that. And I think this segment of the market will want to stay a little bit longer. So I'm not saying maybe for life, for the rest of their life, but they will definitely consider much longer staying. And therefore, I think the design, the tech, everything that you put and you set up has to be more focused and more thought through with a longer staying in mind.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you, Kate. I mean, they are not going to be there just for 6 months or 1 year. There are, they're going to possibly purchase the entire apartment and say, yeah, I want to be part of this co-living community till I die. Like now is the time when I'm settled and I've got my people, everything is taken care of. So, yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and even if there will be, I mean, I want to see, for example, I'm going to the digital, no, sorry, to the Nomad Festival next week in Bansko, and it's going to be about 450, 500 nomads. And there's a lot of them, they are my age or a little bit older, which is fantastic for me. So as I said before, I'm 45. And I just think, well, in a few years, I think we're still going to be like that. I don't think we will want to sit down too much for too long. So having this sort of places, spaces thought for us, not just for, the young surfers and, adventurers and things like that, but a bit more, later life, as we were saying, is something that will definitely make us want to carry on doing more nomadic life. And so maybe, in the next 5 years, we will see a massive change in this, between the age of 50 and 60, especially, maybe 60 plus, a little bit less. But I think between the age of 50 and 60, there will still be a lot of, I think, movement of later life, if we want to call it like that, nomads that will still be quite happy to consider living maybe 1 year here, 1 year there, 6 months here, 6 months there. Maybe having a lot of flexibility with regard to spaces, which is more like, this is my space, but I also want to live 1 year somewhere else. So maybe someone else can come and stay in my place because our community is great anyway, and I can join their community. It'll be more like an exchange of communities, if that makes sense, instead of just a space.
Yeah, I think that does, Kate. And, I'd love to know a little bit more from you, Neha, about what you think the future of co-living will look like with regards to design, particularly for the aging population in, say, the next 10 years' time.
Yeah, I think what Kate has said kind of sets the base for what is going to be 10 years down the line. I definitely feel that it's not going to be just a place where you go and relax and settle down. It's going to be a place which is going to be vibrant and colorful and fun. Because I mean that today people who are going to turn 50, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, are not going to be the types who just sit and read a book. They're going to be restless, they're going to be active, and they want things to happen. So yeah, I think it's going to be extremely enriching. And of course there is going to be a shift, I think, from creating care facilities to creating lifestyle facilities. That's what I see happening in the future. And of course a large part, I feel, is going to be technology. I mean, technology is going to be huge in the next 10 years with VR, for instance, to reenact hobbies, or whether it's robotic pets, or you have smart pill boxes. I mean, you name it, and technology is going to take over. And I think Kate is in the field of technology, so she'll probably know more about how and where that is heading. But yeah, I think that's one. And I also think maybe senior living fests. I mean, imagine if you have 10 communities in the same city or across the country, and you have an annual fest for senior living people. So it kind of creates engagement, excitement. It brings people from different parts of the country together. It's just, there's so much scope in that. Yeah, so that's what I see 10 years from now.
I love that. A senior living fest, that's brilliant. Absolutely love that. Kate, please tell us more about the technology side from your point of view.
So first of all, I want to tap into the fest because I'm signing up to that already. Maybe I'll also organize one. But another thing that I think we will see before I want to tap, before we tap in a little bit into technology, but I think we will see some brands really being able to nail it and establish themselves. So later life, segment, let's say. So when we get a little bit older, we kind of like to go to the same places. Let's be honest about it. Some of us are a bit more adventurous, but Some of us are a bit more like, oh, I like that because I really know what I get. So if I am somewhere and for example, there is a coffee that I already know I will like it, I probably would pick that, unless I go somewhere super fancy in London and it's all about, unique place and, support the local, etc. But otherwise, you tend to go for that sort of thing. So I think we will see a lot of brands. Okay, maybe not a lot, but definitely a few brands that will establish themselves, and then they will establish themselves pretty quick because people will really rely and say, okay, if I go somewhere, I'm going to go there, the same as they do for hospitality. So again, I think there's a lot that we can learn from hospitality with regard to that. And I really, really think in the next 10 years, this will happen. With regard to technology, I was having a chat with someone when I went over to ZOCO for their opening in Vienna. And we were talking about just co-living in general and how I am so passionate about senior living. And I was and I was explaining actually why I think that actually co-living for this target market will have to be even richer in technology, because this is really where we are heading. So yes, the younger one will want to have everything smart and will want to have everything in that sort of way, but they are also very quick at picking up stuff and say, okay, if this is not here, I just download something, I'll do this, I'll sort it myself, I'll order something, via the internet, and then I'll set it up myself, and I do that. Whilst I think with that sort of segment, we will really need to have places super prepared for them. So I cannot say exactly what is going to happen because I'm not one of those that is really that good to foresee the future. But what I see is that I see a lot of spaces with a lot of technology that will be able to interact. For example, some sort of panels in every room or in every apartment or something where you will be able, through either, access control or smart cameras or anything else, to be able to see how many people are in a room, in the communal area. Maybe you won't be able to see who, because obviously data protection, but you might be able to see, your friend on room 101 might be able to let you see when she or he is in the room, so you can go and see them. You can, press a button and connect with them straight away, a little bit like you do with your smart voice activator device in your house. I'm not going to say any names, so people might think I am advertising one against the other, but I'm not. Where you can speak between one room and another, right? Or actually, as long as you are on the same Wi-Fi, you can just communicate. That for me will be one. And literally like a screen where they can do pretty much everything, which could be any added service. So for the operator, it will be really good because they will be able to also upsell a lot. It could be laundry service. It could be anything really, booking the tennis court, like you were saying, or the golf trip, or, the gym session, anything else. They will be able to do it literally just there, not just from their mobile, because I think the mobile will be quite restrictive for them. They would prefer something slightly larger, but it doesn't necessarily need to be their computer, and not something that they have to necessarily set up. So I think, I don't know if we can call it in a sort of way assisted technology, although I don't really like the term, but what I'm saying is that facilitated technology, where it will be very easy. I can see that with my mother, every time I pop to her house in Italy, I set something for her, a bit more tech on her tablet, and yes, a little bit more on her laptop, and on her mobile phone, but not as much. And then she just can do a lot of things. So I'm like, Mom, I'm setting you this up. So when you need to book an appointment to the doctor, you just go there, your password is there, everything is there. You don't have to log in. You can just do it in this way. They will send you a confirmation via text message on your phone. It's like kind of like setting up a lot of things. And I think that will also open up different jobs role and job specs for people, in working with this type of operators and space providers. I don't know, I rambled on a lot. I hope it made sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, made perfect sense. I think we are getting to the end of the session now, so I'll have to close it, but I really, really appreciate, Neha, your time and your expertise, and of course, Cate, for and joining in this panel and participating in discussing this topic. Thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, and thank you, Lucy, for having us. And I say, you know, let's not stop the conversation here. And, you know, Neha, I think we should do more. And I'd like to hear more from you for sure. So everybody, please watch this space, and me and Lucy will come up with something more.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Cate. Thanks for having me.
Have a good evening, everybody. A good continuation of Unissu and RE Connect. More cool talks to come after us. So ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.